When I was at the Battle of Visby reenactment earlier this year, I met a lot of really incredible people who ended up becoming my friends. These are individuals that are all talented in their own ways, and they inspire me and teach me so much about their crafts. And I love talking about medieval subjects with them. But I also found that we had many other things in common too. Two individuals that I met are a couple named Nor and Aebele. My best friend Devin and I ended up camping with them in Gotland a day after the reenactment. And I think camping really brings people closer together in a way that many other things don't. It's actually really beautiful. We spoke about all types of subjects and shared a hodgepodge camping picnic dinner as the sun went down. Aebele is an extremely skilled potter and historical pottery expert. At least I would call him an expert. He's so incredibly knowledgeable about this topic. He was selling his wonderful 14th century replica pieces at the Battle of Visby camp, and he puts an incredible amount of attention and detail into not only replicating the obvious characteristics of medieval pottery, but also the imperfections, which makes them feel that much more real. He owns an atelier in the Netherlands where he makes the pottery and offers it for sale. It's called Atelier Able, and he doesn't only make medieval pottery, but many different historical periods as well. So if you're looking for some amazing historical replica pottery, you know who to reach out to. I've put all of his atelier info in the description box. I recently visited Nor and Aebele in their home along with Aebele's atelier and spoke to him about all things medieval pottery. And I even got to try out making some medieval pottery on a kick wheel, which is essentially a pottery wheel that is powered with your foot kicking it instead of with a motor, as the name implies. The style of wheel is so effective that Aebele mentioned to me that when he brings it to reenactment events, visiting guests sometimes ask if there's a hidden motor inside. And seeing it for myself, I can perfectly understand why. It's very effective. It had been a few years since I had done pottery, and I was never particularly that great at throwing to begin with. I could manage it, but I was a lot more fond of coiling and building items. Here are a few of the things that I've made during the year that I took pottery classes. A couple of my favorite pieces got lost in moves or broke sadly, but these are pieces that I still use in my home and managed to survive the past few years. I really want to get back into making pottery regularly. I have this dream of eating off of only my own crockery that I've made, and that's actually been a dream of mine for quite a while, just like I had this dream to only wear clothes or mostly wear clothes that I've hand-sewn myself, and I actually made that a reality. So at some point in the future, I'd like to make the pottery dream a reality too. That's actually why I initially started learning pottery some years ago. So I felt like this would be a really exciting opportunity to put a historical twist on the experience of making pottery, and I felt like it was also a perfect way to get my toes wet again, or I guess in this case my fingers wet. I also wanted to see a bit of Aebele's process in making medieval pottery, as well as speak to him about the experience of making it and some of the challenges that he faces, as well as unique qualities that make medieval pottery what it is. But before we explore medieval pottery practices and I try making my own, there's a show called Becoming Human that explores the defining steps of human evolution, from early human burial rituals to bipedalism, to the first tools, to the superpower of sweat. This is a thoughtful and educational series that answers some of the questions about the origins of how the things we humans experience every day propelled and encouraged our development as a species. And as someone that's completely fascinated by the Stone Age and Stone Age people and prehistoric textiles, I absolutely adore this series. Becoming Human is a series exclusive to the ethical streaming service called Nebula. A few months ago, I became one of the creators on Nebula, and they've been incredibly supportive of my projects, including some upcoming ones in the works. I'm incredibly proud to be a part of Nebula because we're an independent, creator-owned streaming service that offers ad-free, easy access, and early access content, as well as exclusive content such as Nebula First, where everything is released early, Nebula Plus, where bonus content can be watched, and Nebula Originals, where prestige high-quality videos made in collaboration with Nebula can be discovered. And as many of you may have noticed, AI slop is absolutely dominating the internet lately, and it irritates me so much. But Nebula, luckily, is completely free from AI slop, so you don't have to worry about that. It also contains a plethora of thoughtful content that simply just can't be found anywhere else. But my favorite part is that we are a cooperative, and it makes me feel so happy to be part of a community that is incredibly in alignment with my own personal values. In case you just can't wait for a new release, all of my content is released on Nebula first, 3 days early. And you can also get guest passes as a Nebula subscriber, where you get a first-time watcher a 1 week free on Nebula. Nebula offers a lifetime subscription for the price of $500 paid once, monthly subscriptions for as little as $6, or yearly subscriptions for $60 per annum, but you can get Nebula with 40% off a subscription costing just $36 for a year, or $300 for an entire lifetime. But best of all, for December, Nebula is offering 50% off a monthly subscription, which takes the price down to $30. By using my link in the description or scanning the QR code here on screen, you can get the seasonal offer. And if you aren't sure whether or not you'll like Nebula, all new accounts now get a 3-day free trial so you can get a taste of what our platform has to offer. Thank you so much to Nebula for sponsoring this video and making it possible for me to make videos like the one I'm about to show you. I'm so grateful to them for supporting me in my endeavors to release informative content without having to worry about algorithms and all of the other downsides of posting to social media. Alright, well, let's jump into making and learning about medieval pottery.
I'm Aebele Trijsburg and I'm making historical pottery, or replicating historical pottery. It started off with a hobby, so I was already reenacting, and then I went to the art academy and I tried to make all the goods that I needed, like making my own clothing and eating utensils, shoes, and at a certain point I got to the topic of making my own pottery, which turned out to be very difficult. So I found a teacher. One of the first things was that he said we should build a kiln together. That was a bit shocking to me. I thought I will just learn to throw pottery and we'll see about the rest later. But he insisted that we should build a wood kiln to make proper historical pottery, and I mean, in the end, he's right. If you fire your pottery in an electric kiln, you will just get different results. I wanted to make stoneware in the tradition of the medieval German stoneware, and it will really change the looks of your pottery if you fire it on wood. It will start blushing.
What are some of the challenges you find with replicating medieval pottery?
There are many challenges. I suppose I have to reinvent a lot of things. How to mix the clay in such a way that the surface seems to be the same as the original pieces. Most of the time it's just very difficult to make a replica of something and get the same look and get the same feeling, while as you work on it, it will look different. So if you work with the clay after firing, it looks different. Also with the glazes, if you put on the glaze, it looks completely different than at the point that you take it out of the kiln. And then there's also the imperfections in the pottery. Most of the pottery was made by very professional potters, but they would also be hasty or be sloppy about their work. So they made it just so it worked, but they didn't really care about the tiny details. That's a great quality of the pottery. You can see that if a handle has been attached, most of the time you can really tell that it has been done fast and dirty, so to say. And to do it that way, it's difficult. I find that the most interesting thing about making historical pottery. You figure out how different our society is to medieval society. How our way of thinking is fundamentally different. We think that our ways are the only way, and then you look at this pottery and it's like, this has a different character, and if you use it, you get a different feeling from it. For instance, like I'm drinking from my own cup every day. It has a tea stain inside because I never really wash it. This is really my cup, and no one has the same cup. Even if I make a series of these, they all have their own identity. It has a crack, so I already broke it, but I'm still drinking from it because I'm attached to it. I've grown attached to my own cup. Yeah, these are the metal parts that touch each other. So it's a plain bearing. Not a ball bearing, obviously, because they didn't have that. I've also tried to make wheels with only wood. But the problem with wood is that at some point it will expand when it gets wetter, or it will shrink again when it gets dry, and it just wouldn't work. And then I also got this book from an Italian potter from the 16th century who was describing how a pottery wheel should be made. And he did mention that some of the wheels had a steel axle, and then I was like, well, then I suppose I'm safe. There it goes. So here's a cup from a museum collection from Boijmans van Beuningen, and they think it's from around 1450. And then here is an original one. I'm not going to touch it with my greasy hands, but it's basically the same type, and I want to make a replica. There are some historical sources that explain how the clay would be measured at the time. The people who would do the throwing, they would also get paid by the mass. So there was a certain amount of clay that you would throw and turn into vessels. And if you got big vessels, then you throw a small amount. And then if you throw small ones, you have to throw more to earn the same amount. So usually a pot is 1/10 of a mass, or 1/20th of a certain mass. The only problem is that we don't know how big these masses were at the time. But I'm going to try if 300 grams is the right amount for this little cup. Oh, I've got another picture to show. This is the one. That's funny, she is making the same kind of vessel. So this is a potter from the 15th century. This is a card from a card deck that was preserved. And it says Hefnerin, meaning potter. And you can see the cake wheel with her foot on the side, and then a mass of clay lying around, and she's shaping the pot. So a lot of the vessels, they just start as a cylinder because it's a stable shape to get the right height. And when you finish the cylinder, you can start shaping the vessel. So now I'm gonna create a little belly. And the nice thing with the medieval pottery is that you often see the the tracks that your fingers create in the side of the pot. You can see that over there, like these trails. They run up the vessel like a spiral. And also on that one, this is from the 14th century. Because when you make this type of medieval pottery, it shouldn't be too neat. If you make it too nice and too perfect, then basically it isn't a good replica anymore. There are all these imperfections that you need to respect, so to say. I'm gonna be very barbarious and just lift this with my dirty hands to compare the shape. You can see that it's quite a bit smaller, but I really need to keep in mind that it will shrink 10%, and that's a lot. So I think the belly is fat enough, but here at the foot it needs to be narrower. And the rest of the shape seems quite fine. The question is also, am I allowed to make it crooked like the originals? They probably didn't make it crooked by purposely, but by accident. I mean, it's looking like this from the side. So the best thing, of course, is if you just make a whole bunch of them really quickly, and then if you take them from the wheel, be a little bit sloppy, so they will get the fingerprints and stuff like that, and be imperfect in their own individual way. But if you want to make a replica of a very specific piece, you can also decide to make it crooked purposely. Maybe I will do that this time. So I'll just press there. I think that's one of the most difficult things in making replicas, to be sloppy enough. So this one goes on the drying shelf. And I've got a couple of pots from 2 days ago. I kept them in here. This is the same model, but just another size. And this one is sturdy enough to handle. And now I can shape the foot and I can put a handle on the side. These medieval cups, they get a pinched foot. This is the pinched foot, hollow on the inside, and then you get these fingerprints on the side. So here you can see the handle sitting on the side. That's the next step. And the handle needs to be drawn from the clay. If you just roll a little sausage from the clay, then it's not as strong. There's a little sloppiness, so I'll keep that. I started putting small markings in the bottoms of the jugs to make sure that people notice it's just a replica.
Oh, that's very wise.
Yeah, and some people might take advantage. I don't want it to be like a big marking with my name or something like that, but just 3 little dots, that's all.
You just do 3 little dots and that tells people that it's a replica.
Yeah.
So if any of you out there are trying to take advantage of the situation, 3 little dots, it's a replica.
You will get caught, don't do it.
Don't do it.
That's it, now it just needs to dry. And when it's dry, it can be fired. And I usually fire this kind of pottery at 1250 degrees in a wood kiln. That's, to me, that's very essential to get the right colors. Because in the wood kiln, you really get the flames going in between the pots and licking the pots. if you look at this one, then you see the blush. And I've got some replicas standing around here. Yeah, you can get many colors from the same clay. So sometimes you don't get a lot of blush. This pot probably stood somewhere in the bottom of the kiln. And you can also get a lot of blush, like here. And it's kind of a random pattern. Usually when you get a gray area somewhere, then probably another pot stood there. And I also stack pottery in the kiln like that. That's yet another story. Maybe I've got something, yeah. Do you want to see how I knock them apart?
Yeah.
We're in luck because there's just one still stuck. This is something that modern potters don't do. We are so used to perfection and to industrial pottery that we think that things should be perfect. But I think if something is handmade, then it can definitely be imperfect. And when you look at the medieval pottery, you see that pots were stuck on top of each other and they would have to be knocked apart. That's what you get with these high temperatures. You get a melting process in the clay and then things stick. And you have to use a little bit of force. Oh, there's the hammer. Thank you.
Cool.
This can be very sharp, so you need to be careful. You can see little bits of the rim sitting here on the bottom of that one. So I get that off so people don't cut themselves. That's all. And then you see tiny bits missing over there. But that's just part of the process. And if we look at some original pottery later, then I can also show traces like that. Most of the time it's even more severe than this. I'm specialized in late medieval pottery. I also make pottery from other periods, but mostly late medieval. And then you see an increasing amount of luxury pottery with more decorations. So I've got a few things here, like for instance this. This is Italian pottery, maiolica. It has quite some intricate decorations, and you see that more and more towards the end of the Middle Ages. Here's a plate with 3 birds. I have to do a shout out to my girlfriend who actually decorated this dish. And the 3 birds, for us, it's just 3 birds. But in medieval times, this would probably refer to the Holy Trinity. If you really want to understand what the meaning of those decorations are, then you really need to dive into it and you really need to compare it to visual arts like painting or tapestries to wrap your head around what it may mean. These are utensils, you use them every day. Some of these plates, like they have 3 little feet, and sometimes they were used with a heat source, so you can find some soot on the bottom. So it's not just decorative, but they are decorations on tools or on daily products.
Functional beauty.
Yeah, exactly. This is a cooking pot from the 15th century. You can see, for instance, like how they attached this handle. It's a little bit crooked. It's going this way. If you look at it this way and you really compare the 2 handles, this one is a lot thicker than this one. Also, if you put it on a surface, then you can see that one of the feet is a bit shorter than the other ones. And if you look inside, you also see that they have just been splashing around with the glaze. It's not covered in glaze. It's also not that the whole inside is glazed, but just a patch over there and then a patch over there and a patch over there. You can also see like the fingerprints of the potter right inside. So they held it like this and their finger would be like pricking in the wall of the pot. when they attach the handles, and that is something that you see in a lot of pottery. It's not a mistake, it's just part of how it was made. And for me it's very important to understand how it was made. People in the late medieval period, or people in the medieval period, they usually owned not that much stuff, not the amounts of stuff that we usually own. So the amount of pottery that they had, it was very limited, and the value was quite great. So people would really treat it with a lot of care, and only when it would break they would throw it out, and not before that moment. So that's an interesting thing to keep in mind, how few items people owned, and that, for instance, a cooking pot like that would be the cooking pot in the household, or maybe they would own 2 or 3 or 4, but not much more than that. This is a Jacoba jug, and it's quite tall, but it's not even the tallest one that you would get. So there are also Jacoba jugs that are this tall, and they're really thin and they're really slender and elegant. Archaeologists tend to ask me, how were they made? Were they made in parts? Because you've got this little rim here, so it almost looks as if the potter threw this part and then this part and added them together later, in a later stage. I mean, it would make sense if you're not able to throw it in one piece. If you're a really good potter, then you are able to do it. So that's one of the, I mean, they definitely did it in one go because it's more efficient, but you really need to be very good at throwing. And the same actually goes for this one. I've got this really nice book about the pottery center where these jugs were made originally, like in Raren. And the writer of the book also mentioned like these jugs that they tend to break off, like they tend to break right there. I also have an original one and it has broken exactly there. So there were again people who assumed maybe they were made in parts because, well, it is a difficult shape to throw, but they were not made in parts. They were thrown in one piece. It was just pure craftsmanship, and people working as throwers day in, day out, they could do that easily.
I mean, you did it, and you work day in and day out as a potter, so it's possible.
I don't do it easily, but I
You can do it though,
I can,
clearly.
Yeah. The evidence is there.
It's a dirty little apron. It's also a historical apron. I can tell by the cut of it. I was like, someone with historical knowledge made this apron.
It's also antique linen.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah, you can tell by the way it's woven, so slotty, like it has like lots of lines.
Yeah.
All right, well, I haven't thrown anything in 3 years. We're gonna try it on a kick wheel.
You need to put a little bit of water over there.
Oh, it's warm. Like this or more?
Like that. That's fine. Not too much. And then you take the little ball.
All right.
And
you throw it, right?
You don't need to. You can just.
Okay.
You may throw it.
I usually like to throw it really aggressively. That wasn't in the middle. Is that bad?
It needs to be in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I should probably bleep that out. So just kind of right there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then make sure that it really sits sturdy. You need to use enough water to make sure that you don't get a grip. And then you start kicking the wheel with your right foot.
Okay. The apron needs to kind of come out of the way. It's hard in skirts.
Yeah, you can move the seat back if you need some more distance.
Maybe like that. Yeah. It's not going very fast.
Sometimes I sit on the middle of my skirt, so you can have crepe pants. Yeah, like that.
Let's see how she's doing it.
How is she doing it? Let's use the reference photo here. Yeah, she's kind of got it like, she's got her like knees showing. Like this. Showing her gams.
Yeah, that's a lot better.
Okay.
And then you try to center it by just squeezing and trying to kind of press it towards the middle of the.
And I keep kicking.
Yeah, usually you kick and then you stop kicking and then you throw and then you kick again.
Does it seem like it's going in the right direction?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you need quite some speed.
Okay, more speed.
And maybe more water. I think because this is quite sticky, you really need to do this. And this is really good, what you're doing with your elbows, like leaning on your legs to create stability.
Awesome. And then you want like the mountain thing, right? Like the little cake?
The little cake,
I
yeah,
remember the little
preferably.
cake.
What you could also do is pull it up a little bit and then press it down again.
Yeah. Like this?
Yeah. You can make it quite pointy at the top. Is it still wet enough?
Yeah, it feels pretty wet. Maybe I'll get a little bit more water now.
Moist?
Moist, vochtig. Learned a new Dutch word.
Yeah, this is looking good.
Awesome.
You try to squeeze it down again, and I hold my hands like this because here you created a pile that is nice and centered, but then at the top, this little blob is not centered, so you try to really press that into the center piece.
So it brings into the force.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Oops. Oh.
That's okay, don't worry.
I got a little, like, you know, just...
Modern sculpture.
Yeah, it's very modern art, isn't it? My beautiful modern art.
It's waving at us.
Yeah, he's like, hello. Keep
It's
moving
like a
along.
little dolphin.
Oh, it's like a little dolphin. It's like a little medieval toy or something, like one of those music boxes where the lady spins and spins, you know?
This is going in the right direction.
Minus the top.
Minus the top.
Can I just cut it off?
So if you spin it and then hold the needle at the same place, then you can cut it off easily. I can tell that you did it before.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, some people, they really go in with the needle in such a way that it will destroy it.
Yeah.
They just create it. But this is going well.
But I know with pottery, everything is like, you more rely on the force of the movement rather than the force of your body with those kinds of things. Like when you're turning a piece, you have to very gently touch it unless you want like a big groove or something.
Yeah, exactly.
What are we making today?
I suppose a cup would be nice.
Cup. Like that?
Yeah.
Cool. Feels pretty centered.
Nice.
It's a nice little cake. That actually looks really good.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm impressed by myself. It wasn't this easy when I did it a long time ago. Maybe because it's a kick machine too. It's actually much easier. I feel like I have way more control over it. Like hand sewing versus machine sewing, it's the same thing.
Yeah, what you see with electric wheels and people who start learning to throw is that they often have it too fast and then they can't control the speed. But this is slow and nice.
So I should just have it be to this and then I have to start shaping it, right, with my hands? Like pulling it up?
Well, when it's centered, the first thing that you do is create the hole in the middle.
Okay, so I use my thumbs.
Slowly, sink your thumb into the middle.
I need more water.
And you can lean your hand against your own work because when it's centered, then that's also a stable point. And then you just slowly move down.
Cool. I'm making a cup. You get the little donut. This is the part where it's usually hard for me. Things start to go off center when I start making the hole usually.
Usually when you create the hole, you really stay at the center. So you create a small hole and you extend it later.
I made a little bowl.
Yeah, you're making a bowl. That's also fine. Do you want a bowl?
Yeah, I'll make a bowl.
Rather than a cup?
I'm making a bowl.
Good.
We're making a bowl now.
Fate has decided you
Fate
create
was
a
like,
bowl.
it's a bowl now. It's actually kind of cute as it is. It looks like a medieval oil lamp a little bit.
Yeah, it's nice. You're not afraid to make mistakes. Some
Oh, I
people
love making
are
mistakes.
like too gentle with the clay.
I love making mistakes.
So now,
It's getting too thin, I think.
yeah. So you've got a really thick patch at the top, and then at the bottom is very thin. So this is, it's quite fragile now. Try to squeeze this a little bit.
And just focus on this part.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm making it really wobbly. Trying to keep it centered.
Yeah, it's
It's hard.
It's starting to collapse from the bottom.
Yeah, this is too thin.
But we can maybe lift it. If you give it some speed, I can maybe do a saving action.
Salvaging it. One of my hairs got in there.
Yeah.
One of my hairs is just like rotating around in the speed.
Let's see if we can.
Take my hair out of it.
It's really morphed.
It's morphed into the piece. Whoops. My hair just ends up everywhere these days. Good thing you guys told me to tie it up. That's looking better. Thank you for saving my piece.
You're
Is
welcome.
it done?
Well, in the end, you will decide.
Yeah, I think I kind of... Uh-oh. I did the thing that everybody tries not to do when they make pottery. Their hands slip. All right, this is at a very precarious point now where I need to figure out how to save it.
Do you want to use this one?
Yeah, should I just
You can
shape
use it on the outside.
to just rebalance it a little?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This looks a bit precarious.
It's getting worse. Or I can just accept a little wonky bowl.
Yeah, it is very close to collapsing. You can see that here.
Yeah, I can see it too. Do I start over?
I would start over.
Yeah. My bowl was honestly too thin and it ended up falling apart, so Aebele encouraged me to throw a new piece. I didn't get a video of the process, but I ended up throwing this little milk jug, and I was inspired by ancient Roman pottery for the handholds. At this point, I left Aebele and I went back home. So Aebele very kindly filmed the firing process and wrote out the steps of the explanation to me, which I'm sharing here. After the pieces were dipped in slip, they were then fired in an electric kiln, which is called bisque firing. It's at about 950 degrees Celsius. Some of the pottery then was glazed before the wood firing, but not the example replica jug that you saw Aebele throwing. Aebele then stacked all the pottery inside the wood kiln and placed a pyrometric cone in there to double check the temperature. It melts at a specific temperature. The kiln was then closed with insulating bricks, and there are 2 holes left in this brick wall, one for peeking into the flame, with right behind the hole the pyrometric cone. Aebele then lit a little fire in the chimney to get the draft going, and after that they started the fire in the firebox. They went as fast as they could with the temperature. At first that was about 300 degrees or even 350 degrees per hour, but it's impossible to keep up that speed towards the higher temperatures. So at around 1050 degrees Celsius, it began to get more and more difficult to get the temperature to rise. They would switch up their firing technique every now and then during the process, sometimes switching to another kind of wood, or doing something about the draft, or scooping away some ashes. This is different every time the kiln is fired, so you have to be resourceful and watch the temperature closely as you bring the temperature up. They checked the peaking hole every now and then to see how the pyrometric cone was doing, and when they reached the goal, which was 1240 degrees Celsius, it disappeared. Or actually, Aebele said that he remembers it falling over. They reached their temperature about 7 hours after starting the fire, which was actually very quick. It can sometimes take a lot more time apparently. Then after all of this, they left the kiln to cool down. The next day they carefully opened the kiln by taking out all the bricks and unloading the pieces, and some were stuck together so those had to be broken apart, kind of like what you saw earlier. You can see here my finished milk jug that I made and Aebele photographed. Next time I see them, I'll be able to collect it and start using it. My very first historical pottery piece. Thank you so much to Noor and Aebele for taking me on this wonderful little adventure. It was so much fun learning about medieval pottery and giving it a go as well.
So this is how the little cup turned out. Not that great. If there would have been enough time to make a new one, I would have. But the recordings were already made. So I thought maybe this is, in fact, a lot more interesting to show than a perfect result. Because this is how it often is. You try, you fail, and only after multiple tries you get the result that you desire. If I compare this cup to the original piece, then I can see that the brown color is a lot different. This color was created with a clay slip. That is a watered down clay. You have a whole bucket full of it, and you dip your cup in there, you get a thin layer on the wall of your pot. And in this case it would have been a clay with a high iron content. The iron oxidizes during the firing process and it becomes brown. So I've used this same technique before on this jug, for example, and this is the result that I was going for, but instead I got this from the same bucket of clay because it was applied too thin. So there are these tiny differences in the making process, and you get an entirely different result. It's tricky, but it's also not that bad. If we look at historical pottery, there were a lot of misfirings, and we find huge piles of misfired pottery in the ancient pottery centers. For example, this jug with the crack in the wall, there was too much tension on this wall. There's this jug, late medieval, with a stone enclosed in the wall right there. And there was probably another one sitting right there, and that is why it cracked. And then I have this monk beaker. You can drink from his hood. If you compare it to pieces from the time, then you can tell this is not how his face should have looked. So it's a misfit. Still, he was glazed, he was fired, probably even used. So it's all part of the process, and if I make something that turns out lovely, then you know it comes from a process of pain and frustration. No, that's not true. I love my profession, but this is part of it, and sometimes it's difficult. So I get this result, but I learn from it, and next time it will probably be better, I hope.
And again, if you're looking for absolutely exquisite historical replica pottery, then go and check out Aebele's atelier, which is called Atelier Able. I've linked everything in the description box. I'm taking a small break for the holidays, so I'll be back on January 9th for another video. Have a wonderful seasonal period and a happy new year, everyone. See you then.